All right, Anders here, live from Grand Rapids. Welcome to our pizza hangout. It's our last one of 2024. I can't believe I'm saying that. We've done some incredible classes. Today, pizza hangout, doing a classic margarita. Interesting enough, I just went on our blog. We don't have a lot of pizza. We don't have a lot of margarita posts, which is crazy because it is the most popular pizza, most searched pizza out there, and it's great. So let's do a classic margarita today, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that I would take to make everything. So first we'll go through ingredients. We'll talk about baking steels in the oven. I'll make the pizza. I'll talk about dough and fermentation. And then what we'll do is we will see this in action. We'll see the steels in action, watch our pizza bake. It's going to be incredible. So thank you guys for being here. I'll answer all of your questions. Probably throughout, we'll have pauses and I'll get to them. And if I forget one, just remind me, type it in again. We'll get back to it. And what else? Today, also a special day, our last class, let's do a giveaway. Let's give one lucky person a steal for a gift or a second steal, whatever it might be epic. Again, grateful for you guys being here. Absolutely love doing these classes. So let's get right into this pizza margherita, the baking steel way. Awesome. All right, let's talk about ingredients before I even go top down. The basics, right? I made dough. This is a 24-hour dough. I made dough yesterday, made it in a batch in my dough container, and I brought it home. And when I did it this morning, I balled up, made 3 dough balls, just like this, right? So I balled these up around 8 o'clock or 8:30, 9-ish. I want them 3 hours to proof. And by the way, I didn't use a scale to make, I forgot my scale and I didn't have one at home. So I balled these up at 285 to 295, all by, just by feel, which is incredible. I got that close. I measured them this morning, pretty close, but I do recommend using a scale. So our dough has been proofing for 3 hours, proofing the dough box. I just put a little, these are called delis, 2-cup delis. I put a little olive oil around them just so the dough will slide out easily. This is a 24-hour dough, 70% hydration, and that means it's 500 grams of flour and 300 grams of water. Divide 300 into 500, you get 70%. That is our hydration level, which is relatively high for, but also nice for a classic margarita. I think that's a good hydration for a baking steel that's in my oven at 500 degrees. So that's how we get to that. Other ingredients, really simple today. I use a little Parmesan, grated Parmesan, okay? And for tomatoes, these are Bianco di Napoli. And we did these, a giveaway a few weeks ago with these. These are amazing. Crushed. So I'm gonna open this can up. In fact, let's do that. I'll open this can up, show you how simple this tomato sauce is. Literally open it up, okay? Now I've tasted these plenty of times. I've got a lot of experience with these tomatoes. However, tomatoes should taste great out of the can. Amazing, vibrant, got a great acidic level to it. They're awesome. All we're going to do is just salt them up a little bit. I use this real salt from Redmond. It's a great salt. And I add about 10 grams, which is, you can see about a tablespoon almost, just under. And now I'm going to do is just mix it up. Mix it up. Sorry. That was good. Just mix it up. That's our tomato sauce. So I'm gonna go through each ingredient. So far we have Parmesan, we have tomatoes. Yeah, see this? We have pizza dough. I'm using a fresh mozzarella. So I took it out of the plastic and I've just kind of wrapped it up with a paper towel to get some of that excess moisture out. That's our cheese. And we're gonna slice this up. I'll do that in a second. And then we have fresh basil, and the basil looks amazing. And smell it. Now, I could add a little bit of things to my sauce, but I'm going to keep everything very simple. Our cheese. So what I do with the cheese is my paddle. Literally take it. I like these pizza peels because I can cut right on them. I'm just gonna cut it into chunks. So like little strips first. Don't need a lot, right? And now I'm just gonna take this, cut it into strips. I'm gonna make little cubes out of this. It's a nice way to load my pizza. I'm just got like little cubes, boom, you can see, right? And I've got these like 1-inch cubes. Pretty consistent. You want to try to have a consistent size-ish, just so they melt nicely. And similarly, I should say. So there's my cheese. Let me get my little bowl. Now I've got all my mise en place done, right? That's plenty of cheese. I've got my baking steel peel, using the 14-inch peel, cherry wood, love it, great sauce. So we're good. Let's get right into making the pizza. Let's go top down. Actually, first, before I jump into pizza, is there any questions? You guys have any questions here so far? Hi, Diane, good to see you. Leave it on the counter overnight. Okay, so great question. On the dough, I made the dough because I knew I was making a 24-hour dough. This was by design. So I made the batch and I made 1,000-gram flour, 700 grams of water, 32 grams of salt, 2 grams of yeast, and mixed, and then let it sit in this container at room temperature all overnight. And so I made it here in the studio. I brought it home with me. So this travels really nice in my car. This morning, I only had one dough container. And I didn't use all the dough. You can see I've got about half of it left. So I brought these delis. So I had some delis at my house and I just used these to store my dough as I traveled with it. So now I've got everything ready to rip. So everything at room temperature. Let's see. What is the difference if you find for longer fermentation? Daniel, great question. So for example, I'm going to take this dough container and put it in the fridge. I'm going to make maybe 2 or 3 pizzas today. The rest of the dough will go in the fridge and I'll ferment that for 2 or 3 more days. I think the advantage of fermenting longer is I'm going to have a little bit more flavorful crust. I really like 24-hour dough. I think it's great. If I'm making pizza for somebody special, which I have done on lots of occasions, which is always when I make pizza, it's special, I think. But if I'm making it really special, I'm going to ferment it for 3 days. I think that is the wheelhouse. That is like the strike zone that makes it just tremendous. And this a little bit more flavor, a little bit more like color, just got a little more developed flavor. So I think 3 days is all 1 to 3 days. 1 day is really good. 2 days, really, really good. And then 3 days is really, really, really good. I hope that helps. Yes, so Kevin, I am recording this and we will send a copy out to everybody. If you're on, just get on our email list, which you should be. You need an aero garden to grow your basil. Oh, Marta, that's a great, I just saw an ad on Instagram for this garden that you can make inside. I'm going to grab it. I think it's a brilliant idea. I don't like buying basil because I don't use it all. I'd rather pick it. I usually buy the plants. I'd rather be picking it and using it. And then, you can make basil, pesto, etc. But buying this container is a lot of basil to use in a short amount of time. So I'd rather have a plant. So yes, thank you for that recommendation. I love it. Do you use different tomatoes for different style pizzas, and where can you get one that you're using today? Rodman, great question. So I am using Bianco di Napoli tomatoes. I have done a lot of tasting and these are phenomenal. I love these tomatoes. This is a crushed version. You can also buy them whole peel version. And lately, actually, they sent me some of these, which we gave away a few weeks ago. This is actually in a tube. It's a New York style sauce using the same tomatoes. They just add a little bit of flavor. I think Chris Bianco is behind it, and it's phenomenal. Like, this is more for a New York style pizza. The convenience of using these tubes, it feels like toothpaste, is incredible. So a really great idea because you don't have to do any work. You gotta just leave it at room temperature. Once you open it, you refrigerate it, but this will probably make 3 pizzas easy in one of these. I think it's 8 ounces. So generous 3 pizzas, if you will. So these are available at Whole Foods, I think, and Amazon. Um, I also like, I typically shop at Whole Foods. I also like these Isola. These are Italian tomatoes, whole peeled. These are, actually I have a DOP version. These are better. These ones are better. The Pomodoro San Marzano DOP. These are whole peeled, so I crush these. They're phenomenal. Also love them. You can do taste tests, these ones you prefer. And again, every year, every season, these tomatoes are going to change in complexities and flavors. So you really want to redo it and test them again next year or next season or whatever it might be. Always be tasting. Leave a spoon, taste them before you cook them. Taste them right out of the can. If they taste good here, they're going to be phenomenal on that pizza when it's heated up a little bit. I hope that answers that. So Whole Foods, Amazon. Oh, I love it, Diane. That's great. Does it matter what kind of mozzarella we use? Where do you buy yours? Brenda, it does matter. Yes, great question. I am using, let's go through it. I've got a few different cheeses here. For my fresh mozzarella, I'm using Bel Giosso, Italian. Most markets, I use this, I think at Myers. I went to Bridge Street today in Grand Rapids. They had this. It's really good. It's nice. That's my fresh mozzarella. For my low moisture mozzarella, Trader Joe's. This is a whole milk. This is a skim milk. I grade these ones because they're a little firmer because they're not as moist as these. It does matter, but same rules apply. One thing that's really critical for me is the meltability, because we talked about this, but we always grade our own cheese because each of the strands, when you we buy shredded cheeses, are coated with a starch, which tend to brown a little bit prematurely. So that's why we always buy a chunk and grade it ourselves. For fresh mozzarella, there's going to be some differences in the milk solids and I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but some of them melt better than others. And I haven't found a great one yet here in Michigan, a great fresh. In fact, I don't even know where this is, must be proudly made. Oh, this is made in Wisconsin. So this is local, which is kind of nice. It's a good cheese. It's not great, it's good. And you'll see when we melt it, it comes out, it tastes nice, but when it melts, the characteristics change slightly. So just try, again, just try different versions. Whole Foods has a really nice cheese department, so I always recommend going in there. Hope that answers that. I'm long-winded today. All right, let's get into making pizza. Oh, so before I top down, you guys, my steels, I've got baking steels in my oven, preheating at 450 for the last hour and a half. I want all that heat to absorb. An hour is adequate. Phenomenal. That's what I would recommend. I just did an hour and a half because I was already in here and didn't want to forget, right? So my oven's at 450 and we'll get into the cooking process in a little bit. So bear with me on that and let's get into making pizza, my favorite topic. And answering again, more questions. So let me go topic. I like distractions here. One of my most important pieces is going to be, I'm just going to drop this camera down a little bit. My pizza peel. This is critical, right? I like wood to launch because the moisture will absorb in some of this wood here. I just lightly dust it with flour and semolina flour. Those are my ball bearings. I'm going to lightly dust it. Right? And those are my ball bearings. I'm going to set this aside. Flour up my countertop. And now what I'll do is take my dough out of my container. If you do use these delis, I used olive oil. I put a little bit on the lid so you can see how it just kind of slid off of there. Kept it in nice shape. Okay, so I just help with the fingers. Boom. Oil side down. That awesome. And now you can see it's really supple. It's been proofing for 3 hours. This is really ideal. Look how nice and soft that is. It's gorgeous. And I might pick it up a little bit just so it doesn't stick to my counter. But look at the bubbles. Isn't that incredible? Just a nice 24-hour dough. Gorgeous. This, I'd like to flatten the whole thing a little bit here. I'm gonna go, you could keep the rim if you'd like. I'm not putting too much pressure on there. I love the bubbles too. And really gravity is gonna do all the work here. So pick it up, back of my knuckles, and then just turn like a steering wheel, like this. Right? See gravity doing its thing, right? That nice? That's pretty dope. See how nice it moves? Gorgeous, huh? Cool lighting too. Snowing out here today. So I'm just kind of, you can see I'm just kind of lightly just, I don't want to poke through it. Look at that. Amazing. It's about a 285 gram dough ball. It'll make a nice 12-inch pizza. I can make it bigger. I go a little bit bigger than I usually do just because it's fun. Having fun. That great looking dough. Just be gentle and patient. But really, gravity is doing all the work here. Isn't that awesome? So now what I'll do, one last stretch. Place it on my peel. You see, I've got a 14-inch peel here. So this dough is probably, this is like a 12-inch pie, I'd say. One last little stretch. Really looks nice. I like to pinch these edges just to give each bite a little bit of unique texture to it. Bubble, I'm keeping the bubble, you can see it. More stretch, one more time. One more, let's get nice and big. Gorgeous, really gorgeous. Wow, amazing. Now let's spoon some sauce on. And before I do anything, if you haven't made a lot of pizza, before I put my sauce on, I want to give this dough a little jiggle. See how it's sliding? That's a really important piece. If it gets stuck, now is the time to fix, to remedy, right? And what we do is if it does get stuck in the corner, just slide a little flour or semolina flour underneath. And now I'm going to be sliding again. Gorgeous, huh? And I'm going to spoon a little bit of sauce on. Gorgeous, huh? Spoon it around. And again, more. The mantra I use is less is more. Less is more on top. Really pretty. A little bit more. Probably a little heavy for me, but I like it. And I bring the sauce close to the edge, but not over the edge. Because otherwise it's going to get stuck onto that peel, right? And now let's do a little bit of Parmesan. We're going to add a little layer of something underneath there. Just a bit. Just get a little bit of layer of flavor. I'm going to put the basil on afterwards. And now I'm going to add my cheese. Might need a little bit more. That would be good. All right. You can see I don't have a lot. In fact, I'm going to break a couple pieces off here. I don't have a ton of cheese, but enough, right? Add some nice flavor to it. What do you think? Good? I don't make them perfect, but I like it artisanal, if you will. So before I do anything else, I'm gonna give it a little slide. It's sliding still like a puck. I'm assured now that when I go into the, I'm ready to rip, okay? And so I'm gonna go to my oven now, and what I'm doing, I switched my oven to broil setting. And so I preheated it at 450. I switched the oven to broil. This is an electric oven, Monogram. It's awesome, but it's very like intelligent, or it thinks it is. So when I preheat at 500 and I switch to broil, that broiler might delay because the oven will say, "Hey, wait, I'm too hot. I can't go on yet." So I've tricked it by keeping it at 450 for my preheat, which doesn't make too much of a difference with the steel. 450 for the preheat. So when I turn the broiler on, it's going to go on almost simultaneously. So we're ready to almost go into the oven. It's going to be ready to rip. I'm going to grab a little side towel. always have a bar rag available to you guys. I always have one, within arm's reach. Usually, I was doing something a little bit earlier, but have one within arm's reach. So when I open my oven up, I can use this to pull the rack out, which is really nice. My pizza's ready. Again, take a deep breath. If you haven't done this, this is the hardest part, right? I want to make sure this thing's still sliding right now, and it is. So I'm confident back of my peel to the back of the steel, and we'll have a pretty successful launch. So let's go in to the oven. Up in here. My broiler is on. See, it's red hot. I've got 2 steels. So I'm going to move my back of the peel to the back of the steel. So it's kind of slightly. See how I did that? And I'll check that one more time to my broiler. See how it's red hot? Boom. Awesome. I set my timer on. I'll open the oven up and I'll give it a peek to see how it's doing, and maybe rotate it, turn the broiler off, and boom, we're gonna be off to the races in probably have about a 4-minute pizza. It's all said and done, which is pretty awesome. Flour. Any more questions, guys? Well, we're going here, Brenda. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's great. And I can smell the tomatoes, smell the cheese. It's really gonna be nice. It's gonna be amazing. So Marta, when dough shrinks back, why? It's very elastic. So let's talk about the final proof. So I balled up my dough this morning at like 8 o'clock because I knew I was making pizza at noon. So I wanted to let this dough rest for 3 hours before I stretched it out. Something's burning. Excuse me. Let's take a look. Let's take a peek here. I can smell something burning, so I want to just double check. It's only been a minute. I'm guessing it's one of the bubbles. Let's take a look. It's been a minute. Oh yeah, I can see the little bubbles. They're burning a little bit. That's okay. Look at that. It looks nice. So anyway. All right, so it's been about a minute and a half and the broiler's doing its thing. I'm going to turn the broiler off in about 10 seconds. Actually, I could do that now. I don't want to burn the pizza. So let me speak one more time. What I can do, bear with me, guys, sorry. Then go to cancel, convection, 450, I go to 5, 475. All right, so now I turned the broiler off, left the baking steel, the pizza, I turned it once. I put let me put my timer back on. 2 minutes again. So always use a timer, because if you don't use a timer and you get into a conversation, you're burning. I've burned a lot of pizzas. Timers are critical. So where was I? I'll get into a question on elasticity. So if I let my dough proof ideally for 3 hours, that's the strike zone at room temperature, which is like 70 degrees. This dough, you saw how pliable that was. It would snap back a little. However, if I only let this proof for an hour, you would get a lot more snapback, right? So what I've found 3 hours to be a really good number, between 3 and 4 hours. Anything less than that, typically the dough is almost too cold, or not too cold, but just the glutens haven't relaxed enough yet. I typically go from the fridge to the counter, but this is the counter to counter. Just means the glutens haven't relaxed enough yet. And that's really what you're doing when you're getting that snapback. Now, if you buy store-bought dough, which we covered in a blog post, store-bought dough can, repeat again. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Store-bought dough needs to be balled up to make it awesome. So isn't that great? Look at that. Awesome, right? Underneath is pretty well cooked. So I'm gonna remove this now. You guys can see what I'm looking at. I look phenomenal, right? Look at this. Oh, it looks so good. Underneath is good. Got nice crisp to it. Holy smokes, it's beautiful. Let's go like this. See exactly what I'm looking at. Got some nice char, some good bubbles. It's probably could firm up a little bit more, but I wanted to remove it because I'm gonna take this home to my kids and I'm gonna probably cook it one more time. Let's add some basil to it. A little bit of basil, do a lot. You don't have to do a lot. I think 5 is cool, right? And then just a little bit of olive oil. And that is our Margherita pizza. It's gorgeous, guys. It smells so good. Cheese melted pretty nicely, right? Got a nice melt, didn't brown too much. Looks good. I'm gonna let it set and then we'll slice it up and man, we'll have an incredible pizza later. They'll be really happy. They love it. Is it possible to let the dough ball rest for too long? So Francine, that's a great question. Is it possible? Yes. For example, what's going to happen? It's going to lose some of the vitality. If you let the dough rest for too long, in fact, you can see like, here's an example. This one's really starting to expand. It's going to max out and maybe rip that lid off of there or pop the lid off of there. What happens, the dough just loses a little bit of the vitality, the bubbles, the gases kind of go away. So couple of thoughts I have. If I'm making pizzas and I have extra dough balls, I will, and I didn't use these, what I'll do is I'll ball this up again with a nice tight ball and let it do its expansion again for 3 hours. So I can redo these things several times in the course of 3 to 5 days. It's still basically fermenting, if that makes sense. So that's one thing you could do, or you could ball it up right now. If I was going away for the week, I would ball this up and stick it in the freezer. And now this dough is gonna be good for like 30 days, but just make sure you ball it up before you put it in the freezer. We don't want it to overproof before we freeze it, if that makes sense. So yes, the answer is yes. Any recommendations for my weird oven? Only heat source is on the bottom, no broiler. Daniel, great question. No broiler, meaning I would be doing strictly New York style all the time. If you're heating elements on the bottom, you might want to play around with your placement of your steel. The bottom might be too hot for a full bake, so maybe you want to move it up to like the middle rack. But I would do a strictly New York style bake, which is awesome, by the way. And so instead of having the broiler, you would have a nice 5 to 7 minute bake, maybe 8 minutes, depending on the oven, and it'll be great. That's what my recommendation would be. There's one beautiful pizza. Brenda, it looks incredible. It looks so good. Really happy with it. It's gorgeous. It's gonna taste good. Man, you got it. Anybody else have any questions I can get to you? Love to help. Boom. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pick one random person right now to be a winner of a baking steel. And I can't wait. All right. So if you have a steel already, that's great. If you don't, John Sicaro. Are you still here, John? Totally random. Are you here, John? Just let me know in the comments. That was the only one requisite we need to be here. I hope you're here. Let me know. Oh, there is. I love it. Great, John. You are a winner. So, John, I'm going to type my email address at bakingsteel.com. Can you do me a favor and just shoot me an email, Andres at bakingsteel.com, and we'll exchange our the flour. Always wear an apron, guys, right? Or clean up yourself, tip your counter so when you lean on it like me, you don't get flour on you. Love it. For the dough, do you have the recommendation for the yeast and flour? Oh, Rodman, great question. Yes. I'm gonna type it in the box here. So if you're listening, reading this, my flour recommendation would be centralmilling.com. I use their organic, high mountain, high gluten bread flour. It's phenomenal. I use it all the time. In fact, I just got a 25-pound bag in. I love it. I store my flour. I've got this thing on wheels, this dough container. I always have, 25, 50 pounds of flour in my thing so I can make dough at will. And it's a really great flour. Centralmilling.com. You got it. And the commercial yeast, so I'm not using commercial yeast. I'm using Fleshman's Active Dry Yeast. I love these containers because this lasts about a year, expiration wise. It's 4 ounces, 113 grams. So this will make me 100 batches of dough, or 50 depending on the size dough. But I typically will throw this away in as much pizza as I do make before I use it all, because that's just how I roll. It's amazing. But I don't make pizza every single week, but most weeks I do. And most weeks I'm making breads, probably about 1,000 grams a week. So 2 of these, 2 grams out of this container. It's phenomenal. And you keep it refrigerated once you open it. Where you typed? Oh, I was not. I didn't see it. If you look at right there, I'm in blue. Sheila, right above you, see centralmilling.com. My typing comes in blue for some reason. So John, I hope you got my email, Andrus at Baking Steel, and centralmilling.com for flour. It's phenomenal. I hope that helps. Okay, great. Super, guys. Well, thank you again for another amazing, I can't believe it's the end of 2024. That's wild, right? Let's crush 2025. Let's all be healthy, make great pizzas, make great breads, and be kind, more kind, right? That'd be awesome. That's one of my goals this year. I had trouble with the yeast dying when freezing dough. Your 72-hour has 1 gram of yeast. Great, Ken. Great point. Let me clarify. If I know I'm going to freeze dough, let's just say, for example, I made 1,000 grams flour, 700 grams of water, 32 grams of salt. Typically, that's 2 grams of yeast. If I know I'm going to freeze my dough, I am going to double my yeast. So instead of 2 grams, I will use 4, because you brought a great point up. The yeast will die down in the freezer. Not all of it. It'll slow it down. So by adding more, you just kind of make up for the shortfall from it dying in the freeze. If that makes sense. So just double the yeast. Don't put too much in there, but I find a double is a really good number. And again, 30 days is a good shelf life for that. Do you only use the top rack for baking pizzas? Missy, great question. No, I actually use both. Typically, what I'll do is if I'm making several pizzas, I have 2 steels in my oven. I will use the first 2 minutes on the top rack with the broiler on, and then I'll move it to the bottom for the second half of the bake. I'll move the pizza to the bottom rack, and then I can launch a new one on the top rack. So essentially, it's like a deck oven in here. I'm going to go top to bottom, top to bottom. Now, if I'm only making 1 pizza, I can just use the top rack. That's fine. Just got to be more mindful of the broiler. I got a little, this isn't too dark. I think it's a good color. I like a little bit of chalk. So just be mindful of that. I hope that answers that, Missy. Yeah, and Robbie, it is easy. I've made hundreds of pizzas. Just practice. You'll be amazed at how much better you can get, even over the course of a weekend. And just get consistent. Make it every weekend. Make it a family night. It's nothing better than, or friends. And by the way, it's that time of year where we're all gonna be around the house. Let's make pizzas together, right? Let's just all hang out, get all your mise en place ready, and just practice. But you'll become so efficient and good at it, you'll never want to go out to get pizza again. You guys are great. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for being here. Congratulations, John. And thank you, guys. We will see you in the new year. I have some really fun classes coming up. Thank you, guys. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.